Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where we rank, review, and trailer react. Welcome back to another day of Spider-Man No Way Home, Road to No Way Home videos. Could have phrased that better. Today I'll be reviewing The Amazing Spider-Man, released in 2012, and the story behind this is very fascinating. And for those of you who own the DVD or the Blu-ray, or have seen any behind the scenes footage, or even watched the High Tops amazingly well done High Tops essay video that really delves deep within to the film itself. So, in my opinion, the story behind this is that after Spider-Man 3 in 2007 was released, the film grossed a whole lot of money, beating out its two predecessors and making it the highest grossing Spider-Man film, because at the time, Spider-Man 1 was the only highest grossing Spider-Man film at the time, until Spider-Man 3, its sequel, beat it. Critically though, and by fans, it was slammed. Often the reasons it was slammed is the miscasting of Topher Grace, the altering of Uncle... For fans, it was the altering of Uncle Ben's storyline. For fans and critics, it was Topher Grace cast as Venom. The fans and critics, it was the misuse of Venom's character. The clunkered up villains. The overabundance of plot lines. The weird dancing sequences that happened within the film. The oddly enough cut off Harry Osborn plot line. The terrible love triangle. And the way they portrayed Mary Jane and a lot of the other characters in this film. Now, upon my first three films, I gave the last one an 8 out of 10, with the first two Spider-Man films getting a 10 out of 10. Now we're going to kind of see the dark era of the Spider-Man films. After the film, there was initially plans for a Spider-Man 4 set to be released in May 6th of 2011. But during the film's production, everything seemed to be going fine. Watch the What Happened to Spider-Man 4 video I've posted on the channel already. In my channel banner. If you go down and click my channel picture but over there, you can find it. And yeah, and even go to the, I believe his name is Cut Short. Go to the channel Cut Short and click on one and find the video that says cancelled Spider-Man 4. And yeah, during the film's production, every time we got a script, it turned out to be worse than the other, and they forced him to do Lizard, and this was getting no pressure on him. He had to follow up the storylines, like with the Mary Jane plotline. How are you going to follow that up? What are you going to make Peter go through this time? How are Peter and MJ going to repair their relationship? This film would have focused on how could Peter get back up since he had fell down. But unfortunately, we didn't get to see that. With the pressure from Sony and the constant amount of denials they said with they pushed back not only to that, adding insult to injury, they literally said, Raimi, we should do a reboot. Raimi, we should reboot it. Raimi, let's just cancel the thing and reboot it with him still directing, just with a whole bunch of new actors and characters. With the slate being wiped clean. And due to the fact that since 2002 he was arguing with Sony about how to make a movie, pretty much at that point he just had it with how much BS he had to deal with, and practically left Sony. So the film in 2010 was announced to be cancelled, with a reboot now put in the works. That meant now they needed a new director, that being Mark Webb of 500 Days of Summer, only directing music videos before this, and was a guy that directed more different movies. And I think, had we seen his cut of The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and his truest vision without any interference or any running interference from Sony, it could have been a Spider-Man story that was so groundbreaking and so unique for the Spider-Man franchise. It would have taken it in a more different direction tonally and with the acting and writing. It would have delved more deeper into the characters we met in the first three, in the original films, but different. Now, the often thing I've seen getting skeptic to criticism is that it's not as good as the three films, and that it should try to match up to those expectations. Here's the thing, a movie like this, that has new stars, new movie, new director, and new everything, you try to compare it to the greatness that is the Raimi trilogy. You can't exactly do that. It's like with anything, like with Ben 10. As many of you know who are Ben 10 fans or just naturally watch a bit of Cartoon Network, the original Ben 10 continuity had 4 shows: Ben 10, Ben 10 Alien Force, Ultimate Alien, and Omniverse. After they were all ended or cancelled, a new reboot was brought in, and it had expectations that from the previous 4 shows that they didn't live up to. That's the thing with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It had expectations set by the first 3 Spider-Man films that they could nearly not meet, and even the sequel couldn't meet the expectations of the predecessing film. Unfortunately, it was so saddening that this film was only made merely just to keep the rights to the character instead of using an actual good actor. Using a great actor, Andrew Garfield, and you've obviously seen my social network and TikTok boom reviews very much praising Andrew Garfield, and obviously thousands of people on the internet have praised Andrew Garfield's performance. Do I hate this movie as much as my previous videos, like the ranking I originally did, say that I hate it now? No, I realize that I shouldn't listen to BS that's said on the internet by people who hate the movie. Actually look at different perspectives and see what I think. That's why I wanted to review this. This movie is very fascinating. It takes a very different dive into the world of Spider-Man than we first thought, and is often underrated as a Spider-Man film. It's a very bold film. Not that many people notice it. It took a more different direction. The tone was much more different. The way the characters were very different. The acting was completely different, and the writing was completely different too. Had this film gone out the way it was meant to be, it could have been a great low-budget Spider-Man film. With only $230 million, that being the lowest budget for a Spider-Man film to be made. In my opinion, when the sequel should have been made, the big high budget they gave them the big main budget should have gone into making good costumes, good stuff, good costumes, good set pieces, good costumes, good CGI, and building up good acting and by hiring more actors, not the massive set pieces that were in the film. This film, I'm even doing a Tasm rewrite with the script is literally finished for. I just have to shoot the film. This is it. It is nearly 2 entire pages of the film. That took up 2 pages. And I will indeed be filming that for Spider-Man month. But yeah, it's like I said, this film had potential to be great. But now with the backstory finished and the film was released, it got moderate success. And released this... It released this piece of, but we'll get to that later. Let's nonetheless get into that later. So let's start with the good. Peter and Gwen. The relationship between these two characters is often very fascinating. I actually quite like the relationship, and yes, I do agree. It feels like Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield ad-libbing, but it feels like a natural way people would hang out together. The only issue is they make them look overtly cool, so when they're nervous together, it doesn't really make sense for the characters. When you sort of establish a character, you kind of establish them as their character, and that's kind of how they are for the rest of the film. But that's inconsistent. You can be cool and not be cool. That makes no sense to say that. People can be cool and then unexpectedly not be cool. Although the cool take on Peter Parker wasn't the best, I don't think that was the intention with his character. His intention was to be a much more self-isolated Peter Parker that had, once meeting Gwen, started opening him up to more possibilities of living a life. And he did once have a more better life, but that was when he was a very little boy. But yeah, this is never really shown that well in the film. And yeah, but the Gwen and Peter relationship for what it was in this very first film was amazing, and it would really left off on a decent note. Then on. The only issue I have with it is that Peter literally breaks the promise that Gwen Stacy's dying dad begged for him to do, not really begged, told him to try and promised him to do in his dying moments, and Peter just breaks that promise and being a bad person. Well, not really being a bad person, he just doesn't learn anything. He doesn't learn that he needs to keep people away. It could have been a unique thing had they done it in a different way. It could have been a unique thing, or spread it over 2 movies. Have Captain Stacy die in the sequel, and then show Peter Parker he needs to learn about acceptance and the fact that he'll have to move on without people in his life. But yeah, after that, well, another thing I liked is the grounded/dark tone. With this film, since The Dark Knight and Batman Begins and The Dark Knight had set a new level of great movies, they wanted to put this on the mark. And I think the Batman-ish tone really suited this film. It had some suspension of disbelief, but, well, it was a really unique take on the character. It was more darker, we got a more slower paced story. Had they given us the original vision, we could have gone a more slower Spider-Man origin story. In my version, when I rewrite it, you will eventually notice that if you actually break it down a bit, if you look at it a bit further, I've stretched out a lot more things. Like the origin story is stretched out. In my version of the Amazing Spider-Man 1, it's stretched out and a bit altered to make it look very different, similar but different, to show that it's unique in its perspective, and that there's a lot of different things. Because, well, people often hear people saying, like, man, the Amazing Spider-Man 1 had no originality. Like, oh, they didn't try to do anything new. True for the sequel, but the first one actually had a lot of unique stuff. The villain was a brand new villain character. The actors were all different and such unique, and actors that were often praised for their great roles in television and film and filmography, and even doing some Broadway prior to this. So yeah, great actors like Dennis Leary, Michael Martin Sheen. I think I think that's his name is. Oh no. Oh, the actress who plays Sally Field, who plays Aunt May, Reese Fiennes, who plays the Lizard, and the actor who plays Dr. Raja Yakth. It's so unique because, well, it feels like they take a unique take on these characters. Unfortunately, had this been realized, we would have gone a better film. Another one, Mark Webb. Mark Webb is one of the very many good parts of this film, and, well, he's a great writer. He can write amazingly well-told stories, and if he has the potential to extend those stories in terms of greatness, he can do that well. And, well, High Top's video already explains it better. Just go watch his. It already explains how much of a masterpiece of a director he is, and that how we've seen his proper vision, and I know this is you're going to hear this a lot throughout the video, we would have gone a better film. Next is being unique. Well, trying to be unique. The unique way they tried to do it, like the first-person shots that they chopped into pieces, that actually looked really cool, tried to make you feel a bit like you was like Spider-Man, and really run that point home to people. That's what I really wish the later films could have dove into. Relatability to this character. Like the first film tries to relate to those who have abandonment issues, because there are those in the real world who have abandonment issues. And the story of Peter Parker's parents are often overlooked. Them being agents, nope, that just sounds stupid. It makes no sense for the original continuity of the Raimi films. It makes no sense for the grounded and dark tone that the Mark Webb universe has taken on. So that makes no sense for them to be agents. But the idea of them abandoning them at such a small age can really affect somebody, and choose them to want to self-isolate and really wanting the wanting the kind of love that he sees of other children that he never got to have as a child. And that's why I think it was an interesting fact that him and Harry Osborn became friends. Because while Harry, like with Peter, was often, even though he had a father, he was often ignored by his father. With his mother's passing, it deeply affected him, and he was often ignored by his father. And his childhood was pretty much just, Norman didn't give two BS's about his thing, and pretty much worried about his own life for then. Although, yes, that's honorable of him. That's not really honorable. It's good of him to keep thinking about himself, keep himself safe, but that's incredibly selfish in my opinion. It's majorly incredibly selfish, and quite actually just make you look like a big-ass jerk. So, yeah. And a grade-A asshole. So, in my opinion, yes, I can see why these two would have become friends in this continuity. And then, And then now we get into in the middle. Unfortunately, this is where it goes. The story is messed up in weird ways. It begins in a pretty decent manner until we get to the actual origin story. The origin story pretty much plays out the same. He does not accidentally become Spider-Man. He gets bitten by spiders deliberately when he pulls a strand of web. Pretty much after that, it just chops up the film, and we pretty much, we don't get to see the awesome extra scenes of him testing out his powers that I actually really wanted to see. We don't see him catch Uncle Ben's killer throughout the entire film. That should wrap up that arc, which is why I will even read you a bit of a bit from my one. Blah, 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 blah. But in my version of the film, merging another ideas video, he catches the thief who is driving the car and nearly whips him and realizes who it is, who when he whips into the car, beats the shit out of him, slams him onto the ground from chest back first, and then pins him in a lock and then throws him against the wall and flips him up against the wall so he can't escape. When the police arrive, he pops holes in the guy's nose and then bolts off. With him now realizing that he did indeed have the power to stop it at that, realizing that, it triggers back memories of the fact that it was his fault and pretty much closes up the arc of Uncle Ben. But did we get this in the actual film? No, not though. We didn't actually get that anywhere. The next plotline is the Lizard plotline, which again sort of gets finished but goes nowhere. The Peter Parker plotline is deliberately left open-ended for no reason. Now, in my rewrites, it's meant to left a bit open-ended so it can be revisited optional. But the reason Sony did this is to make it a long-running thing. You can't do that. The first two films about fatherhood. The first film is about fatherhood. Him accepting that he tries to find his father high up in the clouds left him as a child, and he tries to find a new father when he already has one. And once he loses that father, he realizes the father that he wanted to make him, the person he wanted to make like a father, wasn't as good as he thought he was. And the second one would run that point to home that another person who was just a more down-to-earth guy was like his father, but he still yet again looked up into the clouds to see his father again. And then that got related to Captain Stacy's death due to his wanting of a father. Because, well, it would make sense. Even after the first film, he would still have his issues, and he would still not be able to get over the fact that that his parents left him, and it still has a big effect on him even after you get over it. Although it never really is easy for anyone to get over that. But yeah, that could have been a great idea for the story, but that will lead nowhere. But that will go somewhere in my version of the Amazing Spider-Man films. And they will, and if people want to, they can be tied into the No Way Home movies, because while they do the basic same thing, origin story, Captain Stacy dies, Lizard, Gwen Stacy dies, Electro, Rhino, all the same thing. That pretty much goes there, only they'll mention a few events that haven't actually happened in the real life timeline. Besides that, the acting is unfortunately kind of trash. Because Andrew Garfield is an amazing thespian actor, and I think that had we seen all his good shots reinstated into film and all the BS cut out of the film, we could have seen such a more vulnerable, open Peter Parker who was more hormonal and more vengeful as a Peter Parker. So that would have been a unique take on his character. Another thing is the villains. The villains are honestly, it's complicated. His character. We're supposed to feel a bit of sympathy for him. With any villain, you feel a tiny bit of sympathy, like, why did they go bad? One thing I loved about the second Spider-Man movie and the third is that they were doing it for good intentions. He wanted to make the world pure energy to make it more easy electrical costs, obviously tying into the big electrical issue that was going around the time the film was made. Spider-Man 2. The original with Tobey Maguire. Spider-Man 3. Sam Flip Marco just wanted to help his daughter, and, well, he pretty much, yeah, he tried his best, and he tried to even go straight, but when that failed, he went back into crime, because that's often an issue for ex-cons. When you can't succeed in the real work business as an ex-con, you kind of often slip back into crime, unfortunately. Now, throughout the film, we see his human side. We see the human side of all these characters. Even the worst people in the movie, even the most bad people in the movie, we see their human side. We see the villain's human side. We see his son. We see the human within him. But we don't see that because all this is cut. We don't see the human vulnerability, the extra amount of vulnerability that we see within Peter, the slow amount of progression. If we reinstate all these deleted scenes, take out the ones that are stupid, add in alternate ones, add in completely new ones, add in ones that will entirely cut, alter certain scenes, stretch out certain plot lines and finish them off, then you'll get a perfect Amazing Spider-Man. Besides that, the action scenes are pretty in the middle. They often change camera angles. They're very annoying. One scene I don't like is the train fight scene. Every time Peter lands a kick or punches somebody or even does something bad, it cuts to black for 1 second. You don't need to do that. I don't exactly get what the hell it means you need a cut to black. It doesn't represent anything in the entire scene. What the scene is meant to do is establish that, well, Peter now has his powers, and he's beating people up on the subway. Although, he's accidentally beating people up on the subway. Accidentally. Well, to look sort of accidental, and I even watched the rehearsal, it doesn't look accidental. But in my opinion, if you want to make it look accidental, make it look more realistic, because it looks like he's deliberately slamming them in the face with his legs. Number 2, don't cut to black every second. That just looks stupid and makes it look horribly edited. This just shows some of the heinous acts Sony commits towards their movies. And this is unfortunately things a lot of studios do, like with Disney in 2013 when they interfered with the production of Thor the Dark World, the sequel, while the film was being made. Patty Jenkins was going to be directing it originally and could have made a unique film in the MCU with it setting up future events and the fact that it would have been a female director directing a majorly big character. And that's why Natalie Portman signed on, but unfortunately she was kicked off the project due to differences, but Patty Jenkins did later get a chance to bring that into the big screen with her 2 Wonder Woman films. So, yeah. But yeah, overall, yeah, the action scenes, yeah, they're quite meh. Hit or miss. Peter's parents. This is the most infamously notable thing about both these movies, this short-lived franchise, this short-lived film series that was The Amazing Spider-Man, is his parents. A unique plotline to tackle considering no one else had thought of it before, and why I think the untold story idea, the parents idea, triggers everything. It triggers why he becomes Spider-Man, it makes him why he ends up creating a lizard. It makes sense, but it should flow more better. And unfortunately, due to the chopping amount of film they chopped this film into in horrible editing, it gets chopped off. Now, yes, some of you may decline that due to the fact I'm a 14-year-old kid. I may be bumbling a bunch of BS, but I study a bit of movies. I haven't gone to film school. I'm no movie flame fanatic dude who says, oh, Far From Home's a masterpiece. I try to look deep into the film. I try to break it down a bit to see what was good and what was bad. And I don't always let personal opinion take over. Some of it is, yes, some of it is indeed. But look at the film properly. Those who say, no, this movie is a masterpiece, that is your opinion. If you do not like my review, I do not mind it. Just don't thrash me in the comments saying that this film is a masterpiece. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you like it, you like it. You don't like it, you don't like it. Or if you're in the middle like me, then yeah. But yeah, overall, besides this, the theme is something alright. It doesn't explode. I think it would have been cool to bring him back for a sequel film and actually see him expand and make the theme more heroic. Because one thing I love when you do a movie franchise, you have to establish 5 things in order to get this film on the ground. 1, you need to establish a character. The main character will be following throughout this entire journey like Harry Potter. They establish our character Harry. They even establish other characters like Ron and Hermione and Dumbledore and Draco. And we follow them along this amazing journey. Now, a unique thing is that when we follow them through this journey, it establishes this character and changes them up every time. But we don't see that with the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. And another thing is that the writing must be decent and good or decent or consistent. It doesn't have to be consistent, but it has to be good so that the writing can feel better and it won't feel like a sack of garbage. Because, well, when they write this, the actors do it, it gets shot, it gets made. 3, the tone must be decently consistent. If it wants to change, it can change. But make it slow. Don't do the Amazing Spider-Man route and automatically go from a dark, gritty and grounded tone like this actually quite decent 7 out of 10 film in my opinion, or 6, instead into this 4 out of 10 film. I did not mind this going from a grounded tone to a lighter tone. But the thing is, when you do a movie franchise, you must establish not only the characters, not only the tone, you must also not only the characters, not only the writing, not only the tone, but also not only that, but the tone too. The tone is another central thing. You must keep that consistent. You don't, even in the film itself that's based on, The Amazing Spider-Man keeps quite a consistent tone. Grounded? Not really. Because, well, it's realistic. Because Movie Flame says, it's trying to mimic the Dark Knight, but it failed. Because the Dark Knight's meant to be sad all day and all the time. That's not realistic. It's dark and gritty. It's effing Batman. Batman's dark, depressing, and gritty. That's the point of his character. I don't get why Movie Flame understands this. It's pretty simple. Batman's dark and gritty and moody. It's the point of his films. He's meant to be dark, gritty, and depressing. Gotham is meant to be a dump house. It's meant to have effed up human beings running around, exploding a bunch of stuff, killing people to have smiles, laughing for the fact that they shoot a person or mutilate his entire body and put opera music in the background and say they were failures. That's the kind of thing Batman does. Spider-Man is not like that. He is a lighthearted hero. He does jokes and all that. It makes sense and is more realistic from a directing and writing standpoint to make it a bit hilarious. And one thing I notice people often criticize, especially Cosmonaut Variety, is that when he often comes up against that thief in his new suit, in his official suit, he acts like a giant ass. Now, let's break down the thing. You are a teenager. Now let's break down the situation. Since most of my viewers are mostly teenagers, or in the early 20s, let me ask you this question. Now, you are a teenager. You have superpowers like Spider-Man. Your big father figure or mother figure has been killed. You now go out to the city to search for their killer. You go up against some criminals and you get a cool looking suit and you laugh your ass off and just be a stupid dumbass. Now that sounds realistic. He's a teenager. Like, I would do that if I was a teenager. I wouldn't take my job seriously, because it's a teenager. Who would? Teenagers in the 2012s, 2000s, and now don't take their job seriously. Even 90s kids wouldn't take that job seriously. Because we're kids. We're young adults. We're going from kids to young adults. We're juvenile. We're horny. We're extra angry, sad. We're emotionally unstabilized. We're big fat crybabies. We love listening to weird punk rock music. We love juvenile humor like a robot peeing on a human, or wieners, or weird songs that involve sexual contact. Or something about a nutsack, or something about Subway, because that's what we are. We're teenagers, we're stupid, we laugh at weird stuff. Stuff that adults would go, why do you find that funny? Like if I watched a juvenile movie and I laughed my butt off, my parents would question me, why the hell is that funny? Because, well, yeah, that's that. But yeah, it makes sense that he would practically not take his job seriously while he's trying to arrest a crook, so... yeah, of course I find his humor quite funny. But yeah. Besides that, another thing you must establish is the theme song. The theme song you carry throughout the entire franchise. Harry Potter, Spider-Man trilogy, the new one now that still carries it on but changes up a bit. You don't go from blah blah, just go find the theme on YouTube, you can literally search it up, and then go to a dramatic electric version. You can do that, but do it softly, or just keep the same composer. Just keep it. I think they're both great, but just keep the same composer, man. God. Bad. The bad. Sony's interference. Don't really need to explain that. Said already. They interfere with the film. They didn't make it. They managed to make it. What they did. They don't know how to make a movie. None of the studio people know how to actually make a movie. Unfortunately, it's business. They will even, like, for example, the Ghostbusters reboot. As many of you may not heard, Harold Ramis, the one who portrayed Egon Spengler in the first two Ghostbusters movies from the 1980s, had passed away in 2014. And during that year, instead of honoring it and waiting a few years to produce the masterpiece that was Afterlife, they did the most dickish move, in my opinion, and reboot the film with girls. Now, the girls part is not the worst thing. It's actually one of the best bits. The fact that they rebooted it after the fact that one of the actors died is just really disrespectful. And it's so shocking that they accuse some of the fans about being stupid or sexist. So it's kind of disappointing watching that. But yeah, Sony's often interfered in a lot of their projects. So yeah. Another thing that's been bad is Avi Arad. Unfortunately, he's evil marketing at its best. He's good at marketing, but it also, yeah, he's like some of the rest. He doesn't know how to make a movie. I don't know how to make a movie. Yes, I don't know how to make a movie, but I try to understand it. I'm only 14, so don't judge me. Even when people years later will come back and watch this and wonder, why am I better when I'm in my older self? Why am I better when I get older than rather now? Because I'm a kid. What do you think? I have certain opinions of everything. I'm hormonal too. But yeah, besides that, a last thing is being a reboot to a beloved series. It's pretty self-explanatory. Back in the day, the Raimi films are the most popular version of Spider-Man. When I ever hear a debate on a Spider-Man actor, it's normally Tobey or Tom pitted against each other, not really Andrew, who's normally just left on the back shelf. Often, here's what you'll hear in the debate, like, oh, Tobey was a masterpiece, there'd be no superhero movies without him, or no, Andrew didn't get a chance, or oh, Tom is a complete masterpiece, when they're actually all quite decent. Which is why I've also mentioned this many times, that in the Marvel Spider-Man video games, the face was changed to a completely different person and fans were outraged. Now here's the thing, I didn't care. I was shocked at first, but I did not care. Do you know why I did not care? Because when I was a kid, I grew up with the Raimi Spider-Man. Once that ended, it ended. No go-backs, no coming back, no backtracks. That couldn't happen. So basically, yeah, I had to move on without seeing my favorite Spider-Man ever again. Possibly. But like I said, there's no point. I get attached to them, I love them. But I don't get too attached because I know they're just gone anyway. That's why, okay? But overall, what do I give this? Meh. 7 out of 10. 10 taking away 1 point because of the Sony interference. 2 because it's kind of junk. And 3 because, well, yeah, yeah. But overall, yeah. I'm a bit tired. I'm gonna go run around my house and play my video games. But anywho, yes, next video will be a TASM 2 review, a bunch of videos. So, just, all the rest. Bye.